welcome to another episode of Loan Me Your Eyes. Thank you so much for joining us once more. Today, we're going to have a super awesome guest with us. So how about we let him into the chat?
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. So before we begin, I want to first off start off with your name. Well, can you tell us your name?
I'm Craig Bess.
Awesome. Craig, thank you so much for joining us and for being such a special guest in this episode of Loan Me Your Eyes. Now, before we begin, Craig, I just want to let the audience know a little bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight. So if this is your first episode of Loan Me Your Eyes, welcome. Glad that you are here with us. We are going to be having a conversation with Craig about what it is to be him in the country that we're currently living in. We're going to be having some fun dialogue, some serious dialogues. So I would love it if you guys could join us for this awesome ride. So Craig, again, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. So why don't we just go ahead and start off with this question. How do you identify yourself at culturally?
For me, that's a very good question. I am Trinidadian-American. I was born in Trinidad and moved to St. Croix for a short period of time in my youth. And we came to California when I was 8 years old. So I have a lot of influences from Trinidad, from having Trinidadian parents, living in St. Croix, and then obviously the bulk of my life being here in the United States in California.
Awesome. So there's a lot of people like me that might, quote unquote, not know where Trinidad is. So could you maybe give us a little bit of insight where Trinidad is found?
So Trinidad is part of the Caribbean islands. It's one of the last islands in the chain. It's basically located just northeast of Venezuela off the coast of South America. And it's actually Trinidad and Tobago. So it's two islands.
Awesome. So you're not that far off from where I come from. I'm from Puerto Rico. So we're not that far off. So that's really cool. So another question that I want to ask, just since we're talking a little bit about Trinidad, what kind of food normally do you find in Trinidad for all our guests that might not know?
A lot of great food. One of the main dishes there is called roti. It's basically a flour tortilla with garbanzo beans and curry on the inside. It's kind of like a flatbread. Has a lot of food from Trinidad, has Indian influences. So a lot of curries, curry goat. They have a lot of good pastries as well. So a lot of flavorful food.
That's cool. Do you have a favorite, or are you kind of like me, like all-inclusive food from the country?
Because I left there so young, I left when I was less than a year old before I moved to St. Croix. I know more of the foods my mom would make, and roti would be top of the line on that one.
Nice. That's cool. So Craig, now that we know a little bit about, I know there's so much to know about Trinidad, but today's episode, I want to get to know you a little bit better. I want to ask you, why did you choose today to come on our episode of Loan Me Your Eyes? Why did you choose to do so?
For me, I think it was just a matter of being able to share my personal story. Being from Trinidad is not something that you see when you see me. Just on the street, you automatically would think that I was Black or African American. And just wanted to share the different perspectives that come from being perceived as one thing when you're not necessarily that one thing.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's kind of the purpose of this show, to show that there is multiple lenses, if you will. Now that we're talking about loaning eyes, there's multiple lenses to one person. Just because they look dark-skinned, lighter-skinned, it doesn't mean that they are a part of that. There might be a different completely, you know? So Thanks again for joining us. I kind of want to get to know the way that you think and the way that you view things. So this is a question that I'm asking to every single person that's coming up on this show, because I like to hear the different perspectives of where they come from when it comes to this question. So what are some things that people might say or might do that might not seem offensive to them, but to you it is something that is actually quite offensive?
That's a very interesting question.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I work in construction. construction has not always been the most PC area of work. So a lot of times people, some of the guys, they'll play around and ask silly questions. It's like, hey, have you heard the latest Dr. Dre? It's like, and I'll mess around with them like, who's Dr. Dre? Like, why do you assume I'm listening to rap? Why can't I be listening to country?
Sure.
Why can't I be listening to classical music? It's like, come on now, guys. I'm more than just a rap or R&B person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's true for my particular story. I know that even when I'm dressed my best, like, in a suit and tie, you still have those looks like, either it's the, hey, you clean up nice, or it's the, I'm still kind of worried about you, even though you are looking pretty good. You look like you're a decent human being, but I'm still kind of concerned. Yeah. So those kind of looks still kind of, it's like, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, for me personally, thank God, I can honestly say that I haven't experienced it a lot, but I went to a predominantly white high school. So there were Latinos and Hispanics and Chicanos walking all around, but it is predominantly white. So sometimes I would get those weird looks that you mentioned, is like, ooh, this is not, or that kind of weird accent thing that they were expecting. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm fluent in both languages. So I definitely see where you're coming from. And it's so interesting because, and this is a good lesson to maybe our viewers, that just because we look different doesn't mean that sometimes we can't share the same stories. So that's really interesting. So moving to a different topic, it's kind of hard to gloss over everything that's going on right now in our country, not only with the racial tensions, but with COVID and the other however many situations that are happening in the world at the same time. So I guess a good question to continue with this is, how are you dealing with everything that's going on? Or if there's something specific that's kind of touching you on a deeper level, how are you dealing with that aspect?
It's been starting with COVID, that was just like a lot, just, changing up our whole entire lives. I've been working from home since March 13th. So, that definitely was a big shift in how our days went, adjusting to just, being here, not being able to get out like we used to, not being able to eat out, some of the creature comforts that you don't think about until you can't do them. And then, definitely with the George Floyd situation, and then the protests and the looting and all the different things that were going on, it's a lot to take in, a lot to deal with, especially, knowing that every day going out, I make sure that I'm presenting myself in the most respectable way. Make sure that I'm not threatening. One of the things I was telling my wife is that, for me, part of my uniform or me going out, getting dressed, is having a smile on my face while I'm out. Because when I get lost in thought, your face does weird things. You may be just serious and stuff like that. But I know that because of me being 6'2", 210 pounds, that can be menacing depending on how my face looks to other people. They're not thinking about, well, he's thinking about something serious, or he's thinking about, his family or bills. They just see, a stern look on my face or a grimace, and it can create fear. So just being mindful of all those different things. And then, just as I'm in thought about all these different situations, just trying to make sure that I'm looking at through the lens of Christ, and trying to put some concern, not just for myself and people who look like me, but also for those who may not look like me, that are also as concerned, that are trying to seek change for what we're dealing with today.
Do you mind if I ask, do you currently have family living with you?
Yes, we have my godson Zion staying with us for the summertime. He comes down for summer break and winter break. So, that's another kind of I want to make sure I'm being the best example for him and maybe helping him process through all the things that are going on right now as well.
For sure. And do you also, I'm assuming you have a wife as well, right?
Yes, I have a wife. My wife is
Yeah.
Akila.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I mention her. Shout out to Akila. Hey.
Yeah, definitely want everybody to know. If you didn't know who Akila's husband was, there you go. Or there you go. My camera's weird, but you get the point. So a good question to continue a little bit in this conversation of everything that's going on and kind of your backstory. Is your wife also from Trinidad?
No, she is not. She's from California. She is mixed. She is Black and Mexican. And even though you would see her, you would think she was just Black. She's mixed.
For sure. So it's interesting that I would love to hear a little bit about what's it like in the home. Having those two different cultures, really, because it is two different cultures. Your Trinidadian background and her Californian/Mexican background. How does that mix in the house? Does that mix well? Does that kind of clash a few times?
You know what? That's a very interesting question. So when we got married, through the dating process, we had a lot of fun. We didn't really notice a whole lot of differences. We talked. We had a lot of conversation about our backgrounds and stuff like that. It wasn't until we actually got married and started living together that we noticed that culturally we're very different. Being from an island, being from Trinidad, very traditional. Wife usually is at home. She's making dinner, she's cooking, she's cleaning, stuff like that. Whereas dealing with Akila's background, for her, she saw her mom be a very, strong Black woman, and she was out there working. Sometimes she'd be cooking, sometimes she wouldn't. Sometimes she'd have Akila do a lot of the cooking to help out because she was working and going to school to get her degree. So we had different views on exactly how the house should be ran, and then just even our thought processes are different. My family. We would, we kind of, sometimes we can talk kind of harshly to each other and, apologize and it'd be okay. Where for Akila's, her family, a lot of things were, very much compromise, a lot of conversations, not necessarily as harsh as my environment was. So just us talking to each other and communicating was different. And we had to learn, all that and try to work out something that worked for both of us.
So I kind of want to talk about a little bit, bringing back that aspect of everything that's going on. So we kind of heard a little bit about how you're handling this, but as a family, as a unit, how are the both of you managing everything that's going on?
It's actually different for me than it is for you. Like I'm used to being going to work every day and being in the world, dealing with corporate America, dealing with a lot of people just through my day to day. Akila is home more because of her profession, so she gets out a little less than I do. So I know that there's definitely a lot more anxiety on her part as far as dealing with just life right now, police and stuff like interaction with that. I take a different approach because I am out there all the time. I'm constantly on guard. I'm constantly aware of my surroundings and what I'm doing. So it's a little less taxing on me. But when we go out together, I try to make sure that I'm taking consideration. I know that she may be on a higher level of alert. So just make sure that I'm being aware of her and taking into consideration that she's on high alert. So, even being a little bit more on alert and making sure that my actions aren't going to put us in a situation that could be dangerous.
Interesting that you use that wording about being on guard. Sadly, I feel that that's something that a lot of people and it kind of comes back to the initial conversation that we had, that people just assume because you look this way, you are this way. So I can bet that it's been really hard for you and your family to kind of manage everything that's going on, especially because you can't change the way that you look. So I think it'd be a good idea. Can you give any sort of advice to maybe some of our viewers who might be feeling that type of security in their own homes? Do you have any advice for them, for especially if there are younger middle school viewers?
I think that it's important for us to look to the examples of Christ. He went out there to seek and serve.
No worries.
seek those that are lost, and in order to do so, he had to step outside of his comfort zone and his people group in order to do so.
Yeah.
As you're dealing with these things, we can always definitely seek to the Word of God for comfort. I know that He will never leave us nor forsake us. I know that we can ask His angels to encamp around us as we go out and wherever we go. I also try to make sure that I am, again, being aware of my actions and how they can be perceived. That's one of my main, weapons against hopefully trying not to be mistaken for somebody that could hurt somebody. Like I said, keeping a smile on my face, being personable and manable. Those are the things I try to do. They don't always work, because even with doing those things, I have to be able and be willing to give grace to people who may not be as open-minded as myself or other people. So when I do run across those situations where I feel like I'm being treated unfairly, I try to show grace in those situations, and not, fly off the handle or get too upset. I mean, it is upsetting, but I try to make sure I handle it in a way that I'm not going to be perceived as a danger.
So Craig, I just, as we start closing up, I want to say thank you for joining us. It's been an honor speaking with you about who you are and your experience here in the U.S. and as a child as well. So that was really cool. So as we start entering into our final questions, I think it is very important to note, or better said, to ask this question. How can people from any walks of life, any color of skin, any ethnicity, race, gender, age, how can people begin to build bridges with you?
For me, I think that it's just as simple as overcoming the fear of saying hello. Just coming up, saying hello, how you doing, my name is, and starting the conversation. Conversations don't cost anything. They're free. And usually if you ask a couple good questions or have a couple good questions in mind, they can take you, anywhere. It just takes you down a path and it starts branching off. And before you know it, you're talking for an hour.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the thing, what I like to do when I'm trying to build those bridges. Go up, introduce myself, say, hi, how you doing? My name's Craig. How you doing? And, just kind of go from there. I'm not necessarily the most extroverted person. I'm in between. I'm not really introvert, but I'm not really super outgoing either. But I know that when I want to engage with people, I try to ratchet it up a little bit and go for it. And I'm also open to people coming up and talking to me as well. So, like I said, trying to make sure look like I'm approachable at all times and engaging people. If you engage me, I will engage you.
Well, Craig, thank you for loaning us your eyes. It definitely was very enlightening and very awesome to get to just know you as a person. I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't know you, especially those who know Aquila might not know you. So it's really interesting to be able to talk to you here, to get to hear your background, and especially with everything that's going on. So once again, thank you for loaning us your eyes. And to the students that are watching this right now, please make sure to keep watching. There's more stuff to come tonight. And if you're watching this at another time, check out all our other videos and other stuff. All the social medias and stuff like that are going to be in the description of the video. And yeah, thank you so much, Craig, one last time. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Thank you.